All right, so let's talk about conditioning. So, a lot of coaches that I've seen, a lot of athletes that I've worked with don't have a great idea on what conditioning actually is. So, conditioning is to make you better for your sport. So, we have the development of physical fitness through the adaptation of the body and its various systems through exercise. We have three different components that we're using when we're taking a look at conditioning. So the first one is the aerobic system. So that's your long duration, that's over 2 minutes, that's lower intensity, that's what you're training at the start of the off season. Then we have the glycolytic energy system. So that's your shorter duration, that's in that 15 seconds to 2 minutes type range on that medium to high intensity. And then we have the phosphocreatine system. So that's your PC, your short burst, that's your explosive power, your speed, your highest intensity. So when we're looking at aerobic capacity, the aerobic system is the combustion of carbohydrates and fats in the presence of oxygen to produce energy. So what does that mean? That means that we're focusing on burning carbs and fats while using oxygen. So this is your engine for the game. So a couple of things you want to focus on are comfortable pace, getting your heart rate up, and you should be able to hold a conversation. So when I have my athletes doing like a 15-minute comfy bike, it's something at an easy pace where you can hold the conversation, but you're still doing work. The next one is how to train the aerobic system. So we're looking at like that 15 to 30-minute range. You don't have to go for 2-hour runs. You don't have to go for 30K runs. It's nice and easy. So you can bike, you can run, you can swim, you can do any other type of physical activity, something like a Zumba class if you want. But we want to hit that 100 to 120 beats per minute target zone. So we're just working on a comfortable pace. We don't want to go for an hour run multiple times a day. We don't want to go too hard. So we want to focus on keeping it steady, keeping it at a pace you can maintain. And we don't want to train too slowly for long periods of time because that's going to make you slower. It's not going to help you on the field. When we look at the glycolytic system, so that's the combustion of carbohydrates and fats without the presence of oxygen to produce energy. So this is like your engine for a drive. It also determines how fast you can recover. So this is what you should spend most of your time training because this is going to translate best to you on the field. So we don't want to do long and slow stuff. We don't want to do high intensity bursts with long rest. So we need to keep it higher intensity and we want to do less than full recovery. And we want to be able to maintain that intensity throughout. So less than full recovery means that while we have a little bit of rest, we're not fresh. So we're grinding through it towards the end. So when we're looking at training the glycolytic system, we're looking at that 20 to 30 seconds of high intensity reps with that 60 to 90 seconds rest. Once again, it doesn't really matter what you're doing. It could be sprinting, it could be biking, it could be pool workouts. You could also do circuits in the weight room, box jumps, battle ropes, that sort of stuff, lasting for that 30 seconds. The next one, the last system, is the PC system. So this is the phosphocreatine system. This is what uses ATP and phosphocreatine to create energy for that immediate use. Okay. So you can only train this for a short time and then you deplete it and then you get into the glycolytic energy system. So this is your engine for the play. So this system affects how explosive you are. So we want to focus on flat out max intensity and short bursts. So it has to be under that 15 seconds. So we're doing those short bursts for 6 to 15 seconds. So that's something like sprinting, that's your lifting, your squats, your plyos. And then we're taking that full rest. So we're taking that 3 to 5 minutes rest. So if I have my athletes doing a sprint session and they're running for that 30-yard run, or they're doing a 40-yard dash, we're going to take 3 to 5 minutes after and recover fully before we go into the next rep. Otherwise, we're not training the system. If you take that shorter rest, you're going to be working at the glycolytic system. So what not to do? We don't want to do continual sprints without rest. We don't want to train slow. And we don't want to take a shorter recovery. Okay, you need enough time to recover to allow you to perform at the highest intensity. So when do we train these systems? Well, we're always training components of energy systems throughout the off season. The emphasis just changes based on where we are and what your needs are. So these energy systems are not exclusive. They're always working together, but we can have a bit more focus on one area versus the others. So when we're looking at when to train each system, so the aerobic system, we're dealing with the early off season. That's laying the foundation. So you want to take the time at the start of the off season to build up that aerobic capacity, because that's gonna be what sets you up for the rest of the season, or for the rest of the off season. So at the start of the off season, I always have my athletes doing 15, 20-minute comfy bike rides, go for a run, that sort of stuff. We need to build the engine before we can fine tune it. Okay. And then we get into the glycolytic system in that middle of the off season to the preseason. So this is where we're working on that quick burst with less recovery time. So you have to grind through it, because this is your ability to recover. The faster you can recover from this. For the aerobic system, you want to do something like 15, 20-minute comfortable bike ride type stuff, jogging, that sort of stuff. That's what's going to help you get there. It's got to be in that controlled pace. You want to be working on a steady state. You want to be able to maintain that state for the aerobic system. And then the PC system, we're always training this. This is your strength training. This is your explosive power training, all that stuff. Okay. So aerobic system early in the off season, glycolytic system middle of the off season to the preseason. And then you're even going to be training it in season, because you have to maintain it, because it's your ability to recover in between plays. And then the PC system is your explosive power. So how does this work as a football player? First thing, we need to think about what a football player's needs are. Okay. So drives can be long. The game's 4 quarters. So we need to have that aerobic base to start with. Then from there, what are our needs? As a football player, play lasts usually 10 to 15 seconds. So we need to be training in that 10 to 15 seconds, full speed, flat out. And then what's your rest like? There's 40 seconds on the play clock. So you have up to 40 seconds rest in between. So we need to be able to recover within that period. So we need to be pushing something like 10 seconds on with that 40, 45 seconds off. The next thing is, where are you in the off season or preseason or during season? So if you're at the start of the off season, then we're going to spend more time building that aerobic capacity, building that engine. And then as you get close to the season, we're going to spend more time focusing on that explosive power, that shorter, faster bursts with incomplete rest so that you can recover faster. And the next one, what are your positional needs? So as a lineman, you need to be explosive, battling every play, multiple times a play. So you need to be able to recover quicker versus, say, a receiver who's running routes. It's not going to be as physically intensive. So they need to work on speed and recovering from that, whereas linemen are working more on that explosive power and recovering from that. And then what are your weaknesses? Where do you need to improve? So are you great for the first drive of the game, but then after that you're gassed? Well, then maybe you need to work on that aerobic capacity a little bit more. Are you great for the first play, but then struggle for the rest of the drive? Well, then maybe you need to work on that glycolytic system a little bit more. Work on that short burst. TJ, this can be for anybody. I'm just using football as the example. So it works for basketball, it works for hockey, all that stuff. And then any questions? So David, stuff to do to train your 40-yard dash. So that's all going to be the speed stuff. That's your PC system. Okay. So you're working on sprint stuff. You're working on explosive power stuff. You're working on sprint mechanics. And then the other energy systems would be like if you're working on like more, like if you have to do more than 1 40-yard dash quickly. Any other questions? You can drop them in the question component.
No, I really, oh god,